Magandang araw ulit sa inyo. Ito na naman po ako. Meron po ako isang breeder na tatalakayin ulit tungkol ito sa breeding. Maraming big time breeder na kilala to. Si Mr. Harry Parr. Ito po ang kanyang experience sa breeding din. Ang title po ay Parr Breeding the Gamecock Revisited. Ito po, babasahin ko yung paragraph niya para madinig natin kung ano yung ginawa niya. For my birthday in early 1992, my wife Dorothy gave me an autographed copy of a 30-page booklet by Harry Parr, the great Maryland breeder of gamecocks. She had bought it from an advertisement in the Gamecock Journal because she remembered that we had twice visited Parr's home in the middle 60s. A few years after the famous Bar Blackwell name, and she knew that I had been impressed with him, his fowl and his setup, I must confess that both she and I were surprised at first that she had paid $35 for a rather small book. But as soon as I read it, I could assure her that this little monograph was worth every cent and more. In the cocking sport, good information is hard to get, and Parr has crammed a lot of good, well-written information into a small space. After an initial reading, I have revisited Parr books many times and have used his advice at the starting point of several of my own breeding experiments. It has always struck me not only did Parr use plain language, as he called it, but he also wrote in a highly condensed and concise style. This essay is inspired, in part, by my desire to comment and in some cases to expand of some Parr's remark. Hence, in its title, I cannot presume to add anything to the general method of breeding for performance that Parr outlined and that he had indeed proven. But I do have some audition from my own observation and some contribution in moving a step toward slightly less plain but perhaps a bit more rigorous language about those aspects of breeding, connected least with performance that with appearance of the fowl. By this I mean such thing as comb type, leg color, bedding bearing, station height, and so on. Okay, what is purity? If you read the Game Force Journal, you will see my ads for pure breeds or strain of game fowl. You will also hear it said, see it written that there is no such things as purebred gamecock. Who is right? I think that both points of view are correct, each in its own way. If you think that purity should mean that all of the fowl in a given strain are genetically identical and therefore should look and act exactly the same, then of course there is no such thing as pure strain. But by that standard, there is no pure strain of anything. My father used to keep a few laying hens around the place to produce eggs from the family and friends. One year he might have a dozen brown or white leghorn. The next year, Australorps of Rhode Island Reds. The laying breeds are the closest thing you will ever find to pure strain of chicken, but the members of each strain, although very similar, were far from identical. I fed, watch and enjoy this chicken every day, and I could easily recognize each individual hen. They were all of the same color, very close to the same size, and all had straight combs. Yet their differences were still sufficiently great that anyone who paid close attention could see no two individuals were alike. What were the differences? I don't know, but they were there. As an even more striking example, I had two boyhood friends, Harold and Carol Lofton, who were so-called identical twins. Such twins are supposed to come from the same embryo, which is simply divided at an early stage of development. Identical twins should be close of another, but the Lofton twins, although they were so similar, the most adults could not call them by name but simply called them both twin. Were easily recognized by their close friends, their parents, and their brothers. They were not identical, just very similar. In pure strain of hens and human identical, twins are not really identical. What is the reason? I think the reason that not all living things are genetically identical, even if two beings start out with the same genes. These are several known ways and probably many unknown ways that slight genetic changes can be introduced. Give the huge number of genes that are present in animal and birds. The possibility exists for numerous subtitle individual difference to produce overall differences that an alert person can recognize. Getting back to gamecock, Parr defines as a purebred family a refined strain that been inbred long enough that they are reproducing uniformly in all characteristics. He gives as an example a strain of Morgan Whitehackle that had been inbred to the extent that they were all spangled, all straight comb, all yellow or white-legged, all were well built with a weight range of 4 and 6 grams to 5 or 6. Even their fighting style were similar and they were game. I will certainly agree that this Whitehackle could logically be called a purebred strain. Yung sinasabi ho, Whitehackle. But notice that they were not all identical. Some had white legs, some yellow. They varied in weight about 25%, yet they are a purebred strain because in many ways they are relatively uniform in both appearance and behavior. They have become uniform because the breeder has practiced selection over a number of generations. Of course, several examples or more or less set strain of game fowl could be mentioned, but the point is that in the hands of careful breeder, who knows what qualities he wants to produce. Almost any broodstock that he begins with will soon become a set strain. I would certainly agree with Parr that there are game strains that have just as much right to be called pure as any strain of animal or bird that has been selected bred. Another way of looking at the purity question is to consider this. If game fowl are either purebred, number 1 or 2, crossbred, then how could we have a crossbred if we did not start with purebred? Crossbred mean cross between purebreds, and the term crossbred automatically implies the existence of purebred strain. Someone may argue that is considering only pure strain and deliberate crosses that I have overlooked, the mongrel that are just a general mixture and not a cross of pure strain. But then, what is the mongrel a mixture? It is an uncontrolled mixture of pure strain. We do not often find mongrel in nature. Deer, wolves, lion, tiger, and other wildcats, buffalo, quail, and various varieties of pheasant are all wild things that by natural selection, without intervention by man, have become pure strain. Individual mule deer, for example, are just as uniform in appearance and behavior as Holstein cow. Mongrel occur in a domestic animal because man has developed pure strain and then allowed them to cross indiscriminately, producing a mixture that does not correspond either to a pure wild strain, nor to a pure domestic strain, nor even to a controlled cross of purebred strain. There are some good mongrel individual, but only by chance, not by the work of nature nor of man. Part 2.